President-elect, a source familiar who confirms that the swearing in and the inaugural address will happen inside the U.S. Capitol dome.
Yeah, we don't need no snipers.
President-elect Trump is confirming on Truth Social that everything else is going to move into Capital One Arena. We knew that on Sunday there was going to be a Capital One Arena rally with J.D. Vance speaking, Donald Trump speaking, the Village People and Kid Rock were going to perform. Now that is going to be a viewing party for a lot of the folks that are in town, but that seats about 20,000 or fewer of the attendees. That is a much smaller crowd than they would be expecting on the entire national mall.
You have a message.
President Trump is saying on Truth Social, though, that it is important that everyone will be safe, everyone will be happy, and we will together make America great again. That happens as the current president, Joe Biden, is giving us some good breadcrumbs about what exactly it is he plans to write on his farewell note to Donald Trump, the one that he will leave in the Resolute desk drawer.
I really am concerned about how fragile democracy is. That sounds corny, but I mean, I really am concerned because you've heard me say it 100 times. I really think we're at an inflection point in history here.
President Biden revealed last night he and Trump have not been speaking about the hostage deal, even though their teams have been projecting a united front in negotiations publicly. And just because the Biden legacy may wind up being that he was the guy sandwiched between Trump terms, he is insisting he does not have any ill will.
I'm so proud of how much we've accomplished together for the American people. And I wish the incoming administration success because I want America to succeed. That's why I've held my duty to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power, to ensure we lead by the power of our example.
NBC has a widely circulated item this afternoon that says the West Wing feels like a morgue right now. I've spent some time in the West Wing today. I would say it's less like a morgue and more like the last day of school. There are a lot of people standing around, turning off their phones, unplugging their computers, and heading out at the end of the term. Kaylee?
Yeah, it's a tough time. That space heater, I remember it, Peter. It is very warm. So stay warm there by the space heater. And thanks for those details.
Okay. Yeah.
You'll be okay. All right, well, this just in. On Truth Social, President Trump has confirmed some new details. So listen to this. January 20th cannot come fast enough. Everybody, even those that have initially, one moment, it just dropped from our prompter here. Donald J. Trump and the administration just want it to happen. It is my obligation to protect the people of our country. But before we even begin, we have to think of the inauguration itself, the weather forecast for D.C., the wind chill factor could take temperatures into record lows. There's an Arctic blast sweeping the country. He goes on to say, I have ordered the inaugural address, in addition to prayers and other speeches, to be delivered in the United States Capitol Rotunda, as was used by Ronald Reagan in 1985, also because of very cold weather. And he goes on to confirm what Peter Doocy just reported, that we will open Capital One Arena on Monday for live viewing of this historic event and to host the presidential parade. I will join the crowd at Capital One after my swearing in. It's along Truth Social. Those are some of the details, Emily. And as we look at this, this has happened twice from what I've researched, 1909 with Howard Taft and 1985 with Ronald Reagan. And what's interesting to me is the Ronald Reagan comparison, because not only is the inauguration indoors, you have the hostage release, really right before Trump comes in. You had the assassination attempt, Ronald Reagan as well. Trump is kind of a Reagan-esque president in more ways than one.
And I think that what this represents, too, is that you don't have to do something just because that's how it was always done. Here's a president that, to me, hallmarks his decision-making in the same way, which is, let me assess the current situation. Here are the factors. It's not tenable to be outside, so we're going to move it inside. I mean, we see this stuff often with other large events, and I think the reality is that the storied history of this and the solemnity and the iconography that we're all going to be watching and how important and crucial this event is, all of that remains the same. And now everyone's going to be a lot more comfortable. And we don't have to look at Bernie Sanders memes and mittens on, right? The reality is we have here in New York, we're expecting temperatures colder than 2 years past, I believe, historically. So he's absolutely right to protect those Americans that are going to see this historic and wonderful event. So bravo for making a common sense decision that will, in the long run, protect a lot of Americans.
And that Reagan inauguration, Todd, it was 7 degrees. The wind chill was in the negative 20s. This temperature, they say, will be in the 20s. I'm sure colder if you consider wind. But, I bring this up because I've been to many Trump rallies. I remember being in Battle Creek, Michigan, where there were just snow everywhere. It did not deter the Trump crowd from waiting outside. This is an energized group. I think they're going to come and enjoy the moment regardless.
Oh, without a doubt. They've been waiting for this moment for 4 years. Every single day they've been pining for the return of Donald J. Trump, and now they have it. But I agree with Emily so much because it's such a metaphor for what we expect the next 4 years to be. And we got a preview of it when you were in the administration during Trump 1, is that just because D.C. has a tradition and just because the ruling elite class says this is the way it's done, doesn't mean it necessarily has to be that way. Common sense should always rule the day, not, hey, this is the way we've always done it in D.C. That's what Donald Trump's going to bring to the table in this 4 years, much like he did the previous 4. Want to add one more thing that I thought was important in this Truth Social post. He makes a clear point to say this is also about the safety of those first responders that need to be out there for the entire day. There's going to be a lot of attention following the events of New Orleans and the fact that this is such a major event. We need to make sure that those first responders are protected, and this is one way of doing that.
Excellent point. And to talk about, aberrational, doing things differently, Lisa, the rally the day before is interesting. You don't have most presidents who do that. He confirms in this Truth Social. That's happening 3 p.m. Sunday. Doors open at 1 p.m. That's never deterred the camp out crowd from camping out the night before.
Well, we know Trump, he likes to go his own way, but it's not just about the safety of the first responders, it's also about his safety.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who has faced 2 attempted assassinations, one that went through his ear. He could have died if just for a slight turn of the head. So this is also safer for him. Also, as someone who is planning on going, I do have a little bit of a sigh of relief. I live in Florida now. I've gotten really soft on the weather, and I was worried about, freezing to go watch history be made. So at least I don't have to worry about that. But to your point, add this to the long list of parallels between Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. One with Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden both being failed presidents, one-term presidents failing on the economy, also on foreign relations. You look at the Iran hostage crisis that you had talked about, 444 days, 52 Americans held at the embassy in Iran, and they were released on the day that Ronald Reagan was inaugurated. Now we're seeing success with Donald Trump and the release of hostages that Hamas has held, and just this new era that will be ushered in for America, which we're all very excited about. So,
yeah, and
thank God for that.
To the point of security, this does make it, a little safer. We knew there were security concerns, as there are at every inauguration. The Secret Service said we have a no-fail mission. I'm sure they're taking that very seriously. In the wake of 2 assassination attempts, when you look at the list of those not going, Kaylee, we know Nancy Pelosi's not going. We don't know why. She did just have a hip replacement. Michelle Obama not attending again. Don't know the exact rationale. But, when you look at this and you think about it, their decision not to go. However, is it a tone-deaf decision? Is it one in which you missed the 77 million Americans that showed up and said, this is our guy?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that Trump and Melania didn't go to Biden's inauguration, so I don't think it's necessary for political leaders to necessarily go to their rival's inauguration. However, they can't use the weather as an excuse this time around. I'm also planning on being there, and I get to now cancel my order for an electric heated vest, so I'm kind of excited about that. Yeah, I was prepared. I was ready. I will say, I do hope that the Trump transition team makes an effort to have as many people inside the rotunda for the swearing in as possible. I know a lot of people were looking forward to going to that. I'm planning on bringing my dad. He was the first guy ever that I heard of in 2016 who told me as soon as Trump went down that escalator, Donald Trump was going to win the White House. So I know he's really looking forward to that moment as well. And it's not just Donald Trump's moment. It's the Trump voters' moment as well, that they get to see this return to the White House and they get to see this agenda implemented finally. And so I think it's a really hopeful day and one everyone's looking forward to.
Yeah, without question. Todd, and when I think about it, the supporters, they are a robust group. They're an excited group. I think they understand and they're going to show up regardless. It's a huge event, and a lot of them, I've been looking on Twitter, it's like there are hourly, minute countdowns among supporters saying we are ready for this, rain, shine, wind, whatever it may be.
Well, that's why I think it's important that Donald Trump issued this Truth Social post so soon after the news came out on our air and other networks, because you want to control the narrative on this. You want Donald Trump to be out there saying, hey, I'm doing this for you. I know it's not traditional. I know it's not what we expected, but trust me, this is the best course of action, because those people who've pined for this for so long are going to say, okay, at the end of the day, we may not get to watch this the way we originally thought, but the moment he puts his hand on that Bible, whether it's inside, outside, on the moon, or somewhere else, he's going to be the president, and that's what's important for us.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
Thank you.
And he will be making that appearance at Capital One Arena, so he will not fail to see his supporters. All right, coming up, the Supreme Court upholds the TikTok ban set to begin on Monday.
Another big story breaking today, guys. President-elect Trump says that the future of TikTok is now in his hands, saying, quote, "The Supreme Court decision was expected and everyone must respect it. My decision on TikTok will be made in the not too distant future, but I must have time to review the situation," he says, telling us, stay tuned. The High Court decided that the app's ties to China pose significant national security risks, outweighing concerns about free speech for TikTok and its 170 million US users. There are a lot of lingering questions about how the ban would work in practice, because there's no precedent for the government blocking a major social media platform. So joining us now to make sense of it all, chief legal correspondent and anchor of Fox News Sunday, Shannon Bream. Hi, Shannon.
Hey, Emily, so you know that the court is very deferential to the legislative branch if they think they've gotten this right. So let me read a little bit from the opinion. It is not signed by any author. It's a per curiam opinion, meaning the court speaks with one voice. Here's a little bit of what they said, acknowledging that there are 170 million Americans who use this, saying it's a distinctive and expansive outlet for expression, means of engagement, source of community. But get this, they say, but Congress has determined that divestiture is necessary to address its well-supported national security concerns regarding TikTok's data collection practices and relationship with the foreign adversary. Much of the arguments had been about, well, is this a First Amendment issue? People are running their businesses and making political statements on this app. Doesn't seem like the justices bought that. Here's something from Justice Gorsuch. He wrote a concurrence, so he agreed with where they got to this. He said this: speaking with and in favor of a foreign adversary is one thing, but allowing a foreign adversary to spy on Americans is another. Justice Department is out with a statement saying, okay, listen, the law stands. It's going to be up to the implementation in the months and weeks to come, which is where President-elect Trump comes in. He's been all over the place on TikTok. Sounds like he wants to save it now. There is a provision in the law that would let him do that, at least for 90 days. If there's significant progress on a divestiture deal, can he make that argument? We'll see if he does, Emily.
Shannon, thank you. For those of us 80s kids who wore the Save Ferris shirts, I feel like now the kids are wearing
Save
TikTok. Save
Right.
TikTok influencers. All right, Shannon, thank you so much. So I'm going to bring the conversation to the house. Todd, here's the thing. So there's no First Amendment issues, frankly, because it's owned by ByteDance, which is a national,
Key point.
exactly.
Bill, her ass is fired.
They're even talking about like stealing an election.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's making me rethink whether I do believe like election machines can be hacked. Because I've always been like, you can't hack the election machines, but they're like convincing me, I don't know, maybe you can, I don't know.
Joe Scarborough going to see President Trump. I was crying, laughing in bed last night watching you.
It's a grifter.
I'm wondering though, Megan, if we don't allow for some grace.
No, we don't.
No,
Stop it right now.
But how
Answer's
do you
no.
bridge the divide?
I mean, to me, in this world, anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
There are all these conspiracy theories out there about Trump and whether or not they cheated. I know you say that they didn't, but I know you kind of have
Wait
to
a
say
minute,
that.
I didn't say they didn't.
Yeah, I don't. We don't need to.
Can we talk about the lunatics?
You have a message.
He has no wound on his ear. He shouldn't be wearing that bandage. Michael Steele, Joy Reid.
What I said is there is a rational explanation for why Kamala Harris could have lost those swing states and Trump won them. There's a way you can get to those numbers with people staying home or only voting for Trump and not the rest of the ballot. I'm saying there's a history of that.
She and her little friend Ellie Mistel are truly the most racist people on television. And here's her latest messaging, as some groups, indeed, are reportedly planning some march. And listen to Joy Reid's reaction.
Hey, I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing. I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition.
Okay. First of all, where is your hair?
However,
let me hear it, because
what I will say is there was absolute voter suppression that took place, and I consider that cheating. If you think about the voter law in your state of Georgia, that law is anti-voter. When you have bomb threats only in Fulton County, we don't know how many people stayed home out of fear because of the bomb threats in Fulton County. When you have Elon Musk waving around $1 million checks in order for people to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many things that were done that were nefarious. To put aside,
when I went,
that's not my question. So you can't answer that question. You can't speak that even easy truth to us, let alone to the president.
Notice how if she doesn't say exactly what he wants her to say, he just gets mad and starts yelling over her. And also quickly, I feel like now's a good time to mention that 15 of our states don't even have voter ID laws. You literally don't even need to have an ID to vote in just about a third of the states in our nation. But voter fraud is impossible, right? Yeah, give me a break.
Just the actual voter suppression in these anti-voter laws that kept people from registering, that messed up people's voter registration when they showed up and all of a sudden they're not on the rolls.
But that happens every year, right? That happens
every
all
election.
the time.
Hair, Joy, it's gone. Like it's gone from it looked like Trump's hair. And now it's gone altogether. Anywho, this is what happens when you get bitter and bitter and bitter. And we've seen all these women shaving off their hair online. Have you seen this? This is like part of the resistance effort to telegraph that you hate Trump. These, somewhat okay looking women are shaving off their hair. So I don't know if that is what she did there, but we already knew that you were a far lefty. You didn't have to shave your head. Second of all, the nerve. What more self-flagellation could white progressive women have done to earn the little pat on the head from the Joy Reids of the world?
So yeah,
what I'm talking about are these conspiracy theories about Elon Musk, somehow using his tech connections, because I don't want to say genius because we know he's not.
Yeah, he ain't a genius.
But those relationships or whatever, because they just seem too confident.
It's many people on CNN as well.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician. We don't know why, for 9 full seconds, Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up and pose for a photo. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now? It's weird. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of curiosity about it. Why isn't the New York Times aggressively pursuing his medical records? It's just weird.
I'm a little upset that she got rid of the Trump wig that she's been wearing.
And I know, and I'm not saying it was the voting machines or whatever. It just doesn't add up to me with all the support that she had. And I know that for you, and because of what happened with Fox and because what you do professionally with the network, you can't say it was the machines or something like that. But if you think it was the machines, but you can't say, just don't say anything. See, this is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is, there are many ways to cheat in an election. And I don't ever put it past Republicans to cheat in elections because they've been busted too many times.
And sources are telling us that Morning Joe over on MS, Chris Hayes and Joy Reid are all seeing record demo lows. Morning Joe on Monday got 770 in the overall and 86,000 in the key demo. They had been averaging over 800,000, let's say back in June. Then comes Tuesday. Tuesday's broadcast of Morning Joe was the show's third lowest broadcast of 2024, with total viewership down 38% from their average and the key demo down
37% from the show's average. So they fell almost 40% overall from Monday to Tuesday. Wednesday's show was the lowest in Morning Joe's history. 1,001 fewer, and it would have been a slashy. They don't even write 49,000, they write slashy, which is you've fallen off the board.
Joy Reid's fallen off of something, right? And I'm going to stick with my original statement. She wants to be Megyn Kelly so badly, you can taste it. Because Joy Reid knows, much like a lot of these other extremely liberal and deranged folks in certain stages of denial, realize that their days are numbered. Their contracts are about to be pulled, their jobs eliminated, and them ultimately fired, soon to be unemployed. Speaking of the derangement syndrome, these are the 5 stages of Trump derangement syndrome. The first stage is fairly normal, with the occasional dumb rant. We're all used to seeing and hearing that. But the second stage is when more frequent deranged outbursts and cackling begin to occur. People begin to take on a more Kamala Harris-esque behavior. Third stage is humor is lost, unable to make or understand memes. Fourth, all reasoning of facts and logic have been lost out the window. That one's a tough one to really identify because folks like Joy Reid, reasoning abilities and the ability to discern fact from fiction and apply logic in basic situations, it's never really been her strong suit. And the fifth and final stage, the end stage, TDS. There's no cure at this point. And not even more cowbell can help Joy Reid as she is falling fast. And she's pretty much telegraphing her next move, which is this attempt at a very, very weak podcast, mimicking Megyn Kelly, hoping to ride coattails and experience similar levels of virality, which I think are absolutely impossible. And if so, you're probably going to want to clean up your studio. You're probably going to want to get better lighting. You're probably going to want to invite more intelligent guests, because there's no way that anybody's going to want to sit and listen to you and Jackée Reid, which I guess is your sister or your cousin, or I don't know, maybe you guys are related to some degree, sitting and cackling about suggesting allegedly Elon Musk having hacked the election machines, rigged it for Trump. And again, we're going to go back to stage 4 of reasoning of facts and all logic being lost, and thinking that Kamala Harris had strong support and could have won. Never the case. And if you even listen to Joe Biden's exiting speech out of the White House, he said, yeah, I could have beat Trump. Kamala couldn't.
It's Election Day, and President Biden still believes he and his vice president, Kamala Harris, could have beaten President-elect Trump.
I think I would have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump and would have beaten Trump. It wasn't about, I thought it was important to unify the party. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move.
Well, let's think about this.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote.
Yeah. This comment here from RJ says, I want some of what she's smoking. Which I don't see her smoking in this podcast. I see her drinking. I don't know what she's sipping on. Maybe gin, juice. I don't know. But it's a stark contrast of the Reids here. You don't expect to think or hear people say 2 Reids are better than 1. I think that if she's going to double down, she should probably double down on something that works and not trying to replicate exactly what caused her to lose her job and the network to fail. So, yeah, maybe take some notes, learn from Megyn Kelly, try to improve and be better, and I don't know, align with the rest of the country, how Trump won a record-breaking landslide victory to...
I do want to say, though, that it appears as though Trump derangement syndrome is alive and well. The focus of these questions today are disturbing. I don't think my Democrat colleagues learned very much from the November 5th election. The American people rejected all this. Their obsession with President Trump didn't bode well for them electorally, and I think if they stay on this path, they'll be in a permanent minority. But that's up to
112 electoral votes, Senator.
the landslide. But that's up for them. That's up to them to decide. I do want to comment a little bit, I guess, on this newfound religion on independence.
To earn his title as president-elect and to serve as the 47th president of the United States, soon to be inaugurated, and make good on his promise and give American people what they want in this mandate. I just don't see it happening because Joy Reid, she's too far gone. Democrats, in a nutshell, accuse your enemy of what you're doing as you're doing it to create confusion. As a quote, or at least it shows here, a quote from Karl Marx, the father of communism. And the desperation is sinking in because, like I said before, Joy Reid, much like many of these others, are stuck between a rock and a hard place. The writing is on the wall. Odds are the network's going to cut them. But their future solution opportunity is disappearing fast because your best bet would be X, but your Trump derangement syndrome could also be just as strong as your Elon derangement syndrome or your Musk derangement syndrome or your X or Twitter derangement syndrome. And therefore, Joy Reid would have too much pride to post her podcast on X, having the greatest opportunity for visibility. Okay, so there's number one. Number two, TikTok, which could possibly be banned. So there goes that. And I really don't think that the young audience of TikTok really gives two craps about Joy Reid, let alone sit there and listen to her podcast. And then the other one would be YouTube. And I can tell you from years of experience on YouTube, Joy Reid, you will not survive. You will not make it. You will fail badly. And even if you did succeed, you wouldn't earn much money. And therefore, you would have to go get another job or collect unemployment or something. I mean, Megyn Kelly, we're going to talk more about her in just a moment, but Megyn Kelly had a $67 million buyout from NBC. Yeah, the company that owns you, Joy Reid. Prior to that, she made $20 million a year at Fox News. Yeah. Joy Reid makes like $5 million, if that. So can you imagine her buyout?
You have a message.
Do you imagine NBC would offer Joy Reid to just go away? Not much. And she'll probably burn through that quickly, if not having already being buried in insurmountable amounts of debt. She doesn't seem like a very smart person from pretty much any possible way you could look at it. And therefore, I highly doubt that she has, genius level financial capabilities and abilities to budget wisely, especially when you go from making millions to making nothing. Let alone her anger and her hostility and her bitterness and her race baiting natural tendencies and attitude would just essentially kneecap her for anything moving forward in the future. But that's just my take. Good luck, Joy Reid, but you got your work cut out for you, especially when you have the likes of Megyn Kelly sitting down and interviewing and having conversations and podcasts with Jillian Michaels. Megyn Kelly has a roster, a calendar scheduled of some of the best guests. She has an amazing ability to speak and carry on a conversation, and more importantly, bring news, information, facts, and helpful call to actions that would actually benefit people besides just tossing around conspiracy theories idea laced with hate.
Some of the answers. You didn't even have some of the answers.
I had no answers.
No, you didn't have any answers.
I had no answers. I had no answers. I had no answers about how to improve our public education. I had no answers about what to do about homelessness.
People agreed with you about. No, you didn't have the answers.
Okay. What did I say I would do about homelessness, Rod? What did I say?
I didn't pay enough attention.
Well, how do you know I had no answers when you weren't paying attention? There are 4 major fires, including some smaller fires. My engineer is not with us, Sean McConnell. He's lost his home. He lived in the Altadena area. Another member of my staff is not here. He and his mom are imperiled by fires. And I've lived here all my life, born and raised here. I've lived elsewhere. I lived in New England. I've lived in the South. I've lived in the Midwest. But I've never seen anything quite like this. I live in an area called the Hollywood Hills, a very drafty area, and been living there about 30 years. It is not uncommon for us to lose power where I live. For whatever reason, we've not lost power. However, neighbors literally down the street have lost power. Several of them have moved to motels or hotels because there's no telling how long the power is going to be out. Let me give you some idea of what's going on. This is from the Associated Press. The fires have ranged from the Pacific Coast, the Malibu area, to Pasadena, where the Rose Bowl is. And one of the fires, the so-called Palisades Fire, is said to be the most destructive fire in modern history of Los Angeles. Thousands of firefighters and the LA Fire Department put out a request for off-duty and out-of-state firefighters to help. Strong winds had temporarily stopped aircraft from dumping water from above. They were not able to go on flights. Now the air has steeled somewhat now, and the helicopters and other aircraft are now taking off and dumping water on the fires. So far, more than 1,000 structures have been destroyed, and a number of people have been hurt. 2 people are said to have died. At least 70,000 people ordered to evacuate. The number keeps changing because the orders keep continually changing. We're talking about areas all over the city, areas including high-end, affluent areas, places like Calabasas. I mentioned Malibu, Santa Monica. Areas where there are a lot of stars who live there, including Mark Hamill, Mandy Moore. James Woods apparently lost his home. He lived in the Altadena area. The fires have consumed around 22 square miles. That's about half the size of the entire city of San Francisco. Flames moved so quickly, many people had little time to escape. The police sought shelter inside their patrol cars. Residents living at a senior living center were pushed in wheelchairs in hospital beds down the street to safety near the foothills of northeast LA. Many of those residents were at the Pasadena Civic Convention Center waiting to hear where they'd be staying. Fires are called the Palisades Fire, which is the largest one, the Woodley Fire, the Hearst Fire, and the Eaton Fire. Now, normally the California firefighter season begins in June or July, runs through October. January fires do occur from time to time. They're not unprecedented, but they're rare. There was one in 2022, 10 2021. Some are attributing, of course, this to climate change. Gavin Newsom posted on X that California had deployed more than 1,400 firefighting personnel. He's dispatched the National Guard to help. Firefighters from neighboring states are being asked to assist. The fires burned through a canyon called Temescal Canyon, a popular hiking area, where there are many homes, including multi-million-dollar homes, burning parts of the Palisades Charter High School, which frankly had been in a lot of Hollywood productions, like the 1976 horror movie called Carrie and the TV series called Teen Wolf. Residents were urged to limit water usage The LA Public Works Director said the city's water systems were working effectively, but they were not designed to fight wildfires. More than 100 schools have been closed due to the fire risk. The Southern California Edison utility shut off service to thousands because of safety concerns relating to the high winds and the fire risks. There could be more than 500,000 people facing shutoffs, depending upon the weather conditions. There's been very little rain this season, and winds increased up to 80 miles per hour early yesterday. And the winds in some areas topped 100 miles an hour. Willie Porter Nelson III, our video producer last night, recorded this video about the Palisades fire, number 12.
Hey guys, Willie Nelson here, and I just wanted to let you know what's happening. I'm reporting right by the Pacific Palisades, about a mile from where I live in Santa Monica. And on my way home from my work, I stopped to check out these fires that have been going on all day. You can see them driving down PCH. You can see them from the road. It's pretty intense. A lot of friends have been sending me photos and videos throughout the day. Here's what they've been seeing. You can even see the fire a little bit behind me in the corner. And the crews out here are working hard. Over 1,200 acres have been burned and more than 3,000 people have been evacuated. Some streets are closed off, and they even bulldozed some cars that were unfortunately left on Sunset Boulevard to make way for emergency vehicles. Unfortunately, while Governor Gavin Newsom has been busy Trump-proofing the state, a lot of other tasks have been completely neglected, and that's left weak points in areas like this. I spoke to some people here, and they told me they wish California had better leadership to prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future. I grew up here in Los Angeles, so I've been dealing with fires my whole life, pretty familiar with the smell of the smoke in the air. And honestly, this one doesn't feel as congested as some of the bigger ones I've experienced in the past. If you're in the area, stay safe, follow evacuation orders if necessary, and I'll keep you posted as things develop. Reporting here from the Pacific Palisades, I'm Willie Nelson.
We are in LA live. The number is 888-971-7243, 888-971-SAGE. Love to hear from you and how you are faring in the Southern California area. Again, 2 people are said to have died. Meanwhile, there have been looting in homes in the Pacific Palisades as these wildfires have burned. The Pacific Palisades fire, as I said, is the largest, spanning 3,000 acres. The Eaton fire spanning 2,000 acres. The Hearst, HURST fire, 500 acres. Woodley fire, 75 acres. And as of right now, these fires are 0% contained. Now, where is the mayor of LA? Well, she's apparently coming back, if she's not arrived, from a trip to Ghana, Africa. She was criticized by her former opponent, Rick Caruso, because he said this is another example of her failure of leadership. Quote, everybody knew these winds were coming, close quote. So the risk, he said, should have been anticipated. She has posted a series of updates on social media on X, but she's said to have been en route back to LA, and don't know whether or not she's back. She should have been back, I would suspect by now. As of this morning, she was still en route. According to the New York Post, the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, cut fire department funding by $17.6 million. The city has a deficit. She wanted to cut it by $23 million, but she ended up cutting it by $17.6 million. And the New York Post says details on Bass's budget slashing resurfaced. She praised firefighters. Gavin Newsom is also facing criticism, the governor of California. He's been accused of overstating his promise to thin the forest. When I ran against him in 2021, I found that Newsom overstated his accomplishments by a whopping 700%. He promised to clear 90,000 acres, to thin the forest, 90,000 acres of forest. It turned out the actual number was 11,399. or 7 times less than the number he actually gave. Meantime, he slashed some $150 million from CAL FIRE's wildfire prevention budget, all to shore up a budget deficit of some $30 billion. Donald Trump put out some old tweets where he criticized the governor for failing to do a better job of forest management. Quote, I told him from the first day he must clean his forest floors, regardless of what his bosses and the environmentalists demand of him.
After my race to recall Gavin Newsom called As Goes California, I talked about the failure of us to properly have the kind of infrastructure necessary for a population of 40 million. California has not in any real way added to its infrastructure since the state was half the population. The forests have not been thinned. Gavin Newsom lied about the number of acres that he thinned. He bragged about it. Turned out he exaggerated the number of acres that he thinned by a factor of 7. And we've had 2 years of pretty significant rain here in California. Because of the failure to build the water reservoirs and to raise the dams, most of the water goes right into the Pacific Ocean. It's absolutely absurd. The number one responsibility of government is to protect people and property. We got plenty of money to Trump-proof California. We have plenty of money to pay for taxpayer-funded health care for illegal aliens, but we don't have enough money to do the right kinds of things to make sure people in California are protected in situations like this. It is outrageous. He should resign. Karen Bass should resign.
So, yeah, you're right. They just got $50 million in extra spending to go after Trump in court. And now we've got this report that the department did not increase in size with the population. You're saying that, but when the deadly wildfires hit L.A., just around now, 2 months later, they reportedly pulled the L.A. fire chiefs mentally on a cliff, looking out at the ocean, not realizing the water reservoir was empty. A dozen insurers have left California. Republicans now say there should be strings attached to any federal taxpayer bailout money to California. Senator John Barrasso calls it a gross failure. Your take on that, because there are new petitions getting signatures to say they should charge Governor Newsom for criminal negligence, and also a petition to get Mayor Karen Bass to resign. What do you think about this? Because Newsom cut the state spending in the fire budget by about $101 million just 2 months before the fire started.
Well, this is a big issue. One of the reasons homes are so expensive here in California is because of all the environmental regulations that jack up the price of a home. Because of the failure, as I mentioned earlier, to protect and thin the forests, a lot of the insurers either are not insuring at all or charging people a substantial amount of money. Where I live, I've been living in the same place for about 30 years. I believe my property insurance has increased almost 4-fold, and after this disaster, it'll increase even more. There are a lot of people that are on what are called the California plan, which is kind of a bare bones plan, and some people are without insurance altogether. So it's going to be a very, very expensive haul for people to rebuild if they can at all here in California.
Larry Elder, we'll stay on the story. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so sorry what happened for you and your family. It's good to see you. Now to this.
Number 19.
In California's recall election, front-running candidates to unseat Governor Gavin Newsom are hitting the campaign trail, and Fox 40 caught up with Republican candidate and conservative talk show radio host Larry Elder. He was at the Oroville Dam today, and as Fox 40's Rowena Shaddix tells us, he used the backdrop as a way to outline some of his priorities.
Candidate for Governor Larry Elder visited the Oroville Dam with Congressman Doug LaMalfa, outlining his plan for the Golden State. He says among the top priorities will be improving the infrastructure for water storage.
This is a management problem. God makes droughts, but man makes shortages. And we're not preparing. We're not storing enough water. A lot of our water is draining off into the Pacific Ocean.
And clearing out our forests to help mitigate the future threat of catastrophic fires.
It burned all the way around the lake. All those trees were green trees 2 years ago. We're spending $100 billion on a bullet train to nowhere. That project is going to be stopped. We also have a surplus, I'm told, between 40 and 80 billion, depending upon who you believe. And that money will be also used for more fire suppression.
There are a handful of supporters here in the 90-plus degree heat.
I like what he says. I like what he does. I believe he's a businessman. I think he will truly win, but I think they'll vote Newsom out but I don't know how honest the voting system is.
And as far as some critics characterizing him as an anti-vaxxer, he simply says that's not true.
I do believe, however, that people have choices in this country. When I become governor, I know that Gavin Newsom has mandated that every state worker who has not been vaccinated be tested once a week and wear a face mask at work. I'm going to repeal it before I have my first cup of coffee.
At the Oroville Dam, Rowena Shaddix, Fox 40 News.
On the Democratic side, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Okay. Now, this is a morning anchor in LA, Melvin Robert, claiming that it is not true, as Donald Trump says, that firefighters are running out of water, until he got fact-checked by his own reporter on the scene, number 20.
Former LA mayoral candidate and real estate developer Rick Caruso criticizing the city's response to the windstorm and fires. He says officials should have been more prepared.
The real issue to me is twofold. We've had decades to go remove the brush in these hills that spreads so quickly. And the second is you got to have water. And my understanding is the reservoir was not refilled in time and in a timely manner to keep the hydrants going. So that's a failure, whether on DWP's part or another city agency. But this is basic stuff. This isn't high science here. And it's all about leadership and management that we're seeing a failure of. And all of these residents are paying the ultimate price for that.
Despite what you have heard from Caruso, no firefighters have told us that they are running out of water.
And let's go out to Gigi Graciette. She is live in Pacific Palisades. I know your signal's not the best, but Gigi, what can you tell us?
Well, firefighters have told me they have no water on this block, and you may be able to make out the ember storm that we're in the middle of right now. This house is going to be a total loss. They have no water to put on this fire. They are standing by because they're trying to stave the home that is next to it.
Rick Caruso and Donald Trump both said they're out of water. That's just not true. Firefighters say we're out of water. We're just out of there is no water. Scott Jennings on CNN about Karen Bass being in Ghana, 29.
Local leadership, she was in Africa when this was going on and then had to scramble back. They did cut money from the fire department in Los Angeles.
They cut about $17 million. But I just want to know.
And people have questions about why that is. It's not,
but I just
it's not
want to know
politicizing things to raise public policy questions when this devastation
Can I tell you that I agree with you, that I think Democrats have got to do a better job of pushing back, not just by saying, oh, let's look at what's really happening right now, but going directly after some of the inconsistencies that you're saying. You're talking about how local government has problems. State government is where you want to push all of these resources into, and them being the ones that are going to be solving these problems.
Oh, stop politicizing it by talking about lack of fire proper management, lack of water retention. You're politicizing. You criticize somebody's incompetence, and it's called politicizing if you're a conservative. We come back. Valerie, Colorado Springs, Brent, LA, John, Portland, Oregon, all want to weigh in. Do not leave town. 888-971.
Hey, Larry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Good, good. I wonder why you're always beating down on the Democrats that run this city. You ran for governor. You didn't make it. You didn't come close. But you ran for governor. Your ideas, no one agreed with. I agree in some ways that we have problems here in Los Angeles. We've had problems with overgrowth of the foliage that we have here. We've had problems with so many other things. But this has been going on for years.
Would you like me to respond? Did he hang up? Okay.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not going to hang up on you.
Rod, have you ever run for office?
No. I would be smart enough to know I wouldn't be able to do it like you should have been.
So the answer is no.
No.
No. And you didn't run because you're not smart enough?
No, I'm not smart enough. I don't have all the answers, just like you didn't have all the answers. And the people.
So only people who have all the answers should run for office?
They should have some of the answers. You didn't even have some of the answers.
I had no answers.
No, you didn't have any answers.
I had no answers. I had no answers. I had no answers about how to improve our public education. I had no answers about what to do about homelessness.
People agreed with you about. No, you didn't have the answers.
Okay. What did I say I would do about homelessness, Rod? What did I say?
I didn't pay enough attention.
Well, how do you know I had no answers when you weren't paying attention?
Because
What did I say I would do about our public education?
years since you.
What did I say I would do about our public education, Rod? You said I had no answers, so tell me what I said.
I don't know.
So how do you know I had no answers if you don't know what I said? You weren't even paying attention. You just now said.
Got you.
What you ought to say, Rod, is, Larry, I really think you had a lot of guts to put your career on the side, your finance on the side, your willingness to have your personal life scrutinized to run for public office because you wanted to serve. I'm impressed. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't make that kind of sacrifice, but I really am impressed that you did it, even though I don't like your views, even though I happen to think that you're wrong about a lot of the stuff that you say. But you didn't even say that. Moreover, you don't even know what I stood for. You're calling up. You're angry that I ran. You say I had no answers, but you don't even know what I said? That's pretty pathetic, Rod. It really is. You should apologize. You should apologize. You should apologize for insulting me the way you did, telling me I had no ideas, and then admitting you didn't even know what my ideas are. What is that?
Because
how fair is that?
Your ideas did not reach the people in California.
So anybody that loses, their ideas did not reach. So anybody that runs who loses, therefore, had no ideas. So Karen Bass, Kamala Harris had no ideas. Kamala Harris had no ideas. Did you vote for Kamala Harris?
That's why she lost.
Did you vote for Kamala Harris? Rod, did you vote for Kamala Harris?
Of course I did.
You did. She lost. So therefore, by your logic, she had bad ideas because nobody bought them. She lost. What a moron. So let me just follow the logic here. I lost, and it means I had no ideas because I lost. So anybody who runs for office and you lose, it means you had no ideas. There hasn't been a Republican who's won statewide here in California in 20 years, which means no Republican had any ideas that were any good for 20 years. In the recall election, there were 46 replacement candidates. I got 3.5 million votes, more than virtually all of them combined. And on that list was the former two-term mayor of San Diego, who apparently had no good ideas. On that list is a current member of the House of Representatives named Kevin Kiley, who apparently had no ideas. On that list was the man who ran against Gavin Newsom the first time, who apparently had no ideas. On that list was Caitlyn Jenner, who apparently had no ideas. Now, I got 49% of the replacement vote, which, by the way, was the same percentage that Arnold Schwarzenegger got, and we had our first and only successful recall. The next highest person in my race got 9%. The next highest person in Schwarzenegger's race got 32%. And that person was the then Lieutenant Governor of California, a Democrat, who ran against his boss. And the Democrats realized their mistake by putting a prominent Democrat on the replacement side. So the two-term mayor of LA had made some noises about running on the replacement side in my race in 2021. And he was induced not to do so. As a result, many other Democrats were not nearly as well known, and they did that to ensure that a lot of people wouldn't vote for the first part of the ballot, which was, do you want Gavin? When one of the replacement candidates is a prominent Democrat, that means a whole lot more people are going to vote for Proposition 1. That is, I do not want Gavin Newsom to keep his job. They made sure that didn't happen. I raised $27 million in 8 weeks because I got in with only 8 weeks left, more than all of the other candidates combined. On the replacement side, I carried every single one of California's 58 counties except for San Francisco, and I lost that by 149 votes. Not too shabby for somebody with no ideas. And right now, Gavin Newsom's popularity is the lowest of his career. So, all that is to say, Rod, I'd love to see you run for something sometime. Let's see if you have the cashews to do it. Thanks for watching these clips from The Larry Elder Show. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment.